Which role in Ghana are playing state actors and civil society to keep this country safe, peaceful, especially about the risk of terrorism and instability?
Well, the question of instability stems from several causes. If there are socio-historical conflicts that have not been resolved, if there are ungoverned spaces, if government is unable to reach the whole of the territory, all these things can bring about terrorism. Also, if there is so much corruption, if the people are left unattended to, like Boko Haram sprang up as a result of this. In Mali, beyond Timbuktu, there's no government. In Burkina, the same thing. And so terrorism will then fill the vacuum. Luckily in Ghana, it's not like that. Government is spread all over. Government is vertical. From the north to the south, you will see the presence of government. From the east to the west, you will see the presence of those. So there is no vacuum. Number two, democracy is vibrant, vigorous in Ghana. We have multi-party democracy and the parties are strong. Then civil society is very strong. Civil society organizations, including intellectual think tanks, are very strong in Ghana. So even though we have a lot of hiccups in our democratic dispensation, we have not reached or we have not allowed for those bad things to happen so that terrorism can thrive. And that is why we see Ghana as a little heaven, a little oasis within the subcontinent.
Yeah, but I was listening somebody in the army, some Colonel Abuji something.
Colonel Abuji.
He said that in Ghana can be found a condition that led to coup.
Yes.
Is this true?
Yes. One thing, as I told you, instability can come from any corner. Corruption, bad governance, ungoverned spaces, etc., etc. When you have a large army of unemployed, when you have the economy hiccuping, when you have, people who are very poor and very small people are very rich, then the tendency for instability will always be there. So I agree with Abuaje, but the way Ghana is structured, it will be very difficult for a coup to happen. But all the ingredients of despair, unemployment, corruption, all the things are there. But our democracy is a little vigorous. So any coup might be very difficult to handle.
And why do you think democracy and peace are difficult to achieve in some other African countries?
I wouldn't say some other, in Africa generally. The type of democracy we want to practice is difficult for every country. But some countries have been able to tame democracy. The world is at fault why democracy is not happening in other countries. The world is at fault. Europe wants to see European democracy. America wants to see American democracy. But no two democracies are the same. Democracy is not an event. It's a process. You go gradually changing things to suit your specificities. But Europe is impatient. They want to see French democracy in French lands in Africa. The socio-historical trajectory of these countries are different from France. So there is a kind of clash of civilizations. When there's such a clash, democracy will not stay.
Yes, this was just my question. You talked about African democracy and you say that Western type of democracy failed to develop Africa and its people. So what is African democracy and the Western type of democracy, in short?
Western democracy believes in a constitution, institutions, rules, regulations, etc. And voila, democracy. But I believe that democracy is more than constitutionalism and institutionalism. It must be spiced with the history of the people, their choices, their beliefs. For example, one thing we did in Ghana, which is very good, is that we didn't throw away our traditional way of governance, chieftaincy. We put it in our constitution. But in several places, in French-speaking countries, for example, the French people don't want to see indigenous democracy fused with universal democracy. So I believe, and I've written some articles about it, African democracy should be brewed in African ports. That is, the socio-historical trajectory of African countries must be part of the making of democracy. Yes, we need a constitution. Yes, we need institutions. But the constitution and the institutions must really show the Africanness of democracy.
So do you think that in some way the Western type of democracy is the cause? Is the reason of a fight and the destabilization in some African countries, let's name the Sahel?
100%. You want democracy, and there is a constitution that elects a president who sits in Bamako, who sits in Conakry, who sits in Ouagadougou, and there are institutions of state dotted around the president. But how the people of Timbuktu and beyond will eat, nobody cares. But that's Western democracy. Once upon a time, we were applauding Mali as one of the best democracies in Africa. Once upon a time. Not long ago, when Tanja was the president of Niger, we were applauding Tanja as one of the best democracies. We applauded Abdoulaye Wade in Senegal as one of the best democracies. But there are people who are suffering. Western democracy, that everybody can do whatever they like. Freedom. In Africa, those freedoms are curtailed by social and historical realities. If you don't allow African governments to cut their own democracies, things will fail. People will challenge their government. And that is the challenge that you see in the Sahel.
Okay, what's your opinion now about this increasing in coups, especially as we are seeing in French-speaking countries? And what also seems to be the return of strong men in Africa, leaders who exercise their power not for the benefit of their citizens, but for their own power, for their own benefit, for the family's benefit?
Let me correct an impression. Gone were the days when the so-called strong men were having a desire for themselves and for their families. Those were conspiratorial coups. Then they come to power to enjoy the legacies of government. These days, the coup we are seeing are not the strong men. They are angry men supported by the people. In Mali, in 2011, the fall of Gaddafi created a condition where the soldiers were just sent to go and fight jihadists. But the government did not resource the soldiers. They were dying at the front. So if a coup in 2012 comes out of it, it is not strongman coup. It is a popular coup. In Guinea, the so-called democracy allowed bad elections, people's complaints were not heard, and whatnot. So popular coups come out of the failure of democracy. So the new coups we are seeing are not old coups who are strong men, who are selfish. These are people who think, and let's pray they succeed, who think they can change things. And let me say, me personally, if you ask me, I would prefer strong men in Africa who will rule better than the Democrats who are stealing from their people. There are people who are strong, but they know what they want for their people. One such example in Africa is Paul Kagame, whom the West hates. But look at what Rwanda is doing. So I would prefer a dictator who knows where he's taking his people to a Democrat who is a thief. And what is happening in Africa is a rejection of Western democracy. The coups are now popular coups. Coups that think they can reverse the order.
Do you think ECOWAS and African Union are doing sufficiently strong and have sufficient authority to deal with these conflicts going on, or their voice is just a voice in the desert?
Just a voice in the desert. I have always said that the ballot cannot stop the bullet. Take this headline. The ballot. Anytime there is instability, we want to rush people to the ballot. Then democracy. We did it in Charles Taylor's Liberia. Charles Taylor won 77% of the votes. What happened? The ballot did not stop the bullet. In Mali, the same thing. We said make arrangements. So. It didn't stop. You know what? ECOWAS and AU, they are only replicating, they are only copying European things. Sanctions. Whom are you hurting? ECOWAS is made up of 15 countries. We want to build an economic community. 3 countries are in turmoil. Very soon, I predict Niger will be in turmoil. So let us assume that 5 of your countries are in turmoil. You put sanctions. You close their borders. What kind of economic community are you building? ECOWAS is only talking, shouting, because there is a protocol. When such a thing happens, ECOWAS should rather help Mali, help Guinea, help Burkina to find a way of creating an atmosphere of a better government to stop the jihadists. ECOWAS must rather even have a community security like Europe. NATO is always ready, and there will be no fighting in any country in Europe. They will go in there. So where is the community security? Instead of saying we have suspended you, of course the protocol is there, I understand. But why are they talking? How will it work? How will it work? AU also 2004 has the same protocol. They must now think of how to help countries to be stable rather than do a post-mortem kind of steps to say that we have sacked you. Who suffers? It's the people. So ECOWAS and AU don't have what it takes to stop what is happening. Why? Because about 67% of the budget of AU comes from the EU. He who pays the piper calls the tune.
Last question. The armed force in Ghana, tell us more about their strength, skills, ability to deal with the counter-terrorism operation. What is taking back this Boko Haram terrorism in Ghana? The armed force, the counter-terrorism?
The Ghana Armed Forces is a well-respected organization. It's the most respected institution in Ghana. And the structure of the armed forces is such that I doubt if terrorism will come to Ghana. I'm here with them, and I know their problems. Currently, the armed forces is structured in such a way that we have the Northern Command, the Central Command, and the Southern Command. Again, the training is such that terrorism features strongly in all their training, and counter-terrorism measures are also part of their training. Now, as I talk right now, there are FOBs, that's Forward Operative Battalions, in all the hot areas, unstable areas. For example, our borders with Burkina, it's a hot spot. So we have forward operating battalions there, doing exercises, simulation exercises all the time. That is the presence of the Ghana Armed Forces on all the areas where we think terrorism can come from. And then our military intelligence is a very strong organization. There was a time we stopped some people going to fight for ISIS in Boku. The intelligence is working very strongly. So I doubt if terrorists can attack. Of course, as for terrorists, they are unpredictable. If they can attack the US, they are unpredictable. But secondly, Ghana has not shown itself prone to terrorism. So we are not expecting any terrorist attack. If there is any attack, it will be a small skirmish against especially white interest, American and especially French. If there is a shop in which French people always attend, patronize, Americans patronize, there is that possibility. But I think our police and security services are all around. But you can't predict. So if there will be any attack, it will be a small attack on a hotel or on a... But an attack on Ghana like Burkina Faso will never happen. The Ghana Armed Forces, the training structure, the shuttles, and the FOBs that we have along the borders will never happen. Again, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, Burkina, Ivory Coast, and I think Benin have gotten a certain operation for border management. So our borders are being managed with all the border agencies, including the armed forces, to check inflows and outflows. And this alone also is a check on infiltrations by terrorists.